Alright guys, so I'm going to introduce to you chimes, like concert chimes for percussion. And the good news is it is no different than playing bells or marimba or xylophone or vibraphone in that it's got the same notes and the same keys. The challenge is it looks different, it's set up differently, the way that you physically approach the instrument is different. And that's the challenge part. And you don't get a lot of practice on this instrument because people don't own chimes. The only way you're really going to get practice on it is when you come to school, your band class, or if you do an orchestra somewhere. That's the only time you're going to get it. So whenever it comes to instruments like this that you can't just bring home with you, it's always a good idea that if you can get there early or stay a little bit late or during breaks, spend some time on this instrument. That's how you get good at this instrument. If you don't do those things, you'll never get good at it. Getting good at something is just spending time with it. Repetition, more time you spend with it, the better you feel about playing the instrument. So, let's assume that you already played mallet instruments like bells or glockenspiel or marimba or xylophone or vibraphone, any of these. So what you'll notice right away is you do have the same keys. You have C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And just like any other instrument, you might have more notes than this or less notes than this, but the notes are still the same. And you do have your sharps and flats up here. So this is set up just like the bells. Also, if you have any piano knowledge, it's set up just like a piano. These would be the white keys, these would be the black keys. It's set up exactly the same. But you don't have little dinky mallets with round balls in the end that you hit this thing with. You actually use hammers or big mallets. And mallets can be made out of plastic or wood. In this case, this is actually made out of a hide. So this came from an animal, unless this is a synthetic material. You'll see that it's coiled up. So when you hit it, you don't hit it on the side. You actually hit it on the top. But there are certain ways to hit it to get different sounds out of it. But in general, the way you do want to hit it is you'll notice a little kind of like a nub. I'm going to call it a nub. I don't know if there's a real name for it or not. But you'll see where it kind of bubbles out and there's like a nub. And you want to hit it more kind of on the side, but not hitting the two part, but on the side. Not so much on top though. Because what you're trying to do is get the whole bar or the whole tube to resonate. And so if you hit it right here, that's sort of the sweet spot. The other thing you want to do is make sure the weight of the mallet hits the bar fully, the weight of it. You're going to feel that it has some weight on it. Let that whole weight hit on it. Don't sort of like fake hit it where you kind of just barely hit it. Like that. You're not getting a full sound out of that. Make sure you dig into it. But at the same time, it's not like a drum where you're playing into the instrument and holding it into the instrument. You're not doing this. Because that can be kind of harsh sounding. You do want to pull away, but after the weight of the mallet has actually hit the bar and made a full sustaining note. So most of the time when you play chimes, you will be pushing the pedal down. There's a pedal down here. The pedal works the same as a vibraphone, the same as a piano. It's the same thing. So when you want the note to ring out, you press the pedal down, you hit the note that you want to hit. But a problem that you're going to run into is when you have to play multiple notes in a row, you're going to get a bleeding over of these different sounds, and it's going to sound really nasty if I do things like this. That's a mess. But sometimes you're actually supposed to do that. For instance, I've played orchestral pieces where they want these to kind of sound like church bells, and they want the sound to kind of bleed over a little bit. So there's times where I've had to do that, and they wanted that kind of sound. They wanted to sound messy or whatever. But most of the time, you're not going to do that. Most of the time, you're going to do what they call pedaling in between notes. So you're going to hit a note, it'll sustain, and then when you go to hit the next note, you lift up on the pedal real quick and press it back down again to play the next note. So for instance, if I wanted to play just the C scale, but it not sound muddy sounding, I would pedal in between every note. So you'll see I'm lifting up in between each note that I'm playing so that the sound will stop when I play the next sound, so you're not getting that bleeding over. if you're playing like a chord technically is 3 notes or more sounding at the same time, but in percussion we don't really always do that. Sometimes we'll play 2 notes and consider that a chord. So sometimes you'll play 2 notes at the same time, like maybe a C and a G. And so in that case, you would hold the pedal down and let both notes ring at the same time, because that's the sound you want. You want both of those pitches at the same time. But it doesn't have to be a C and a G, it could be whatever the 2 pitches are. And notice as I'm playing, I'm definitely letting the weight of the mallet hit the bar or the tube, and then I am coming back off of it afterwards. So let's talk about how to set it up. I mean, there's really not much that you have to do here, presuming that the instrument's in good shape and already set up for you. So once it's all set up, we're not going over maintenance today, but what you want to do is position yourself so that you can see your band director. So if my band director or my conductor is right there, I don't want to put the instrument like this. I mean, if I put the instrument like this, I can see the band director, but you know, maybe his arms or something might be in the you know, or let's put it this way, maybe some of the bars might be in view of some of his baton stuff, and maybe you can't see it because you got to follow him. So if you turn it to the side like this, now you have a clear view of your band director. But another problem that you have though is now the bars are over here, so you kind of have to look this way. Regardless of whatever percussion instrument you're playing, your instrument's always going to be in one place and the director's always going to be somewhere else. If you're a trumpet player, your instrument's right here, it's always in front of you, no matter where you go, it's in the same spot. They have a little bit of an advantage over us because it's so easy, because it's just right there. And I'm not saying trumpet's an easy instrument, I'm just saying that watching the band director and knowing where your instrument is easy, because it's right there. Your percussion instrument, you're never really in full contact with your instrument. And not that your instrument moves around, but you move around. Sometimes you have to physically move around to play one of your percussion instruments. This is a lot bigger than a trumpet. A marimba is a lot bigger than a trumpet. Sometimes you have to walk around to get to different parts of it, and you're not connected to it the whole time. So you need to start getting really good at what we call peripheral vision. That's like if you're looking at something, but being able to see stuff out of the corner of your eye, either to the side or up or down. So what is always good is set yourself up where you have this instrument maybe at a diagonal, where you can see it, but you can see your band director up there, and if you need to look at this instrument, you can still see the band director out of the corner of your eye. Or if you need to watch the band director, you can still see this instrument out of the corner of your eye. So for instance, if I had to play a C at a very specific time that he's conducting something, I'll set myself up with a C and just hold it in position, and I'll watch him, and I'll look for him conducting, and when I see him cue me or whatever it is, I know where I'm at, I'm watching him, it's all good. Then another issue we have is, let's say we have music that we have to look at. You don't want to put your music stand over here, because now I have to look here, and over there at the same time. What you should be able to do is put the music stand directly in front of you in view of the band director as well. Because you can see the band director above the music stand, but you can see the music stand in front of you, and you can also see this instrument now. It's not very often that you have a whole bunch of notes, like 16th notes or really fast notes on chimes. It can happen, but it's not very often. So it's not like you need to be glued to the page. Usually the way a chime part will work is you might have one note that rings out for a very long time, and you just have to count. So, you know, you're watching the band director, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, and that might hold out for a long time. And then maybe in another 4 measures, you got another pitch you got to play. Let's say it's B flat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, and then if you ever see a rest, you're going to treat it just like anything else. It means they don't want any sound. It's a rest. A rest doesn't mean that you don't count. A rest means that the sound of whatever instrument you're playing stops. Your instrument, that sound stops for that period of time that the rest lasts for. So that's really all there is to the chimes. Just some other random issues is like, okay, where do you put your mallets? Because there's not like a really convenient place to put it. You definitely don't want to get in the habit of like hanging it off the bars or hanging it off the frame, because it's really easy for it to fall off and make noise. And that's one of the challenges we have as percussionists, is we need places to put our things. So just a couple things you could do is I've seen some people hang like a stick bag or some sort of holder off of the chimes off the side, and you can like stick it in the stick bag or whatever. People sometimes will set up what we call percussion trays or tables, which is really just a table or a stand that is in this position, and you put some sort of felt or a towel on top of it, and you can just lay your mallets or instrument on there. And this you can do for marimba or timpani or whatever, not just chimes. You would put a towel or foam or something on top of it, because when you set it down, it makes noise. You don't want to do that. Now, if you set it down really quietly, I still made a little bit of noise, but you know, if you had a towel there, I don't have a towel, but let's pretend this is a towel. That made a lot less noise, putting it on the binder here. Okay, so that's the idea. And sometimes you have to switch from one thing to another really fast, so maybe you don't have a whole lot of time to make a switch and think about how much sound you're making when you make that switch. You know, you're playing whatever you're playing, set it down real quick and go to your next thing. That happens a lot in more advanced percussion. When I was in college and professional orchestras, this would happen all the time, where I'd have lots of different instruments around me, and I had to make switches really fast between things, and I had to have a real convenient, accessible way for me to set my mallets down, or my triangle, or castanets, or whatever instrument I was playing, setting it down very quickly to go to the next thing. So, that is the main thing with the chimes. I think I've covered everything. Do you guys have any questions, and I'll answer those questions? Yes?
So you say there's not going to be any time where you're going to have to play 16th notes on the chimes?
I'm not saying that you won't ever have to play 16th notes, it's just really rare. It's not normal to do that, because this is an instrument where traditionally the notes are just meant to be played once and ring out for a while. Sometimes it might follow the melody of a trumpet or some other instrument in your band or orchestra. So there may be 8th notes, maybe some 16th notes, but it's not going to be like a solo instrument usually where you're playing a whole bunch of fast stuff. That's not really a normal thing, but it could happen. So you need to be prepared for if it could happen. I'm just telling you that it's not very often that happens. Any other questions? All right, then I must have done a good job. Thanks.